Cheers and welcome to Irondale Brewing. I'm going to keep the intro really short today because we have a special guest at the end and a nice discussion with Matt from Brewery. Basically, we both made a red ale that was based on a recipe of his, slight differences. I'll have you watch the end to hear all about what the kind of all the details of what we did differently. But it was a great collaboration, so I'm going to just jump right into some brew day footage. And then you'll definitely want to stick around for the discussion of how these two beers compare at the end. All right, so I set my strike temperature to 162, and we'll see. Tried something a little bit different this time. I did the built-in just to get it up to the strike temp, the built-in temperature sensor, and then after that was done, I put the wrapped Bluetooth thermometer in there, and then let that stabilize between the two. Switch the control over to the wrapped, and let that stabilize between the two. And now we're going to mash and see how much, and then set my temperature back down to 155, which is our mash temp. And then we'll see how well that stabilizes. Get mashed in here. I don't have things in the right hands at this point. Put this over here. It seems like the process is different every time. I'm going to try to leave that Bluetooth sensor in there while I mash in. It's probably going to get a little bit messy, but it seems like when I take it out, I'll just do a little bit at a time. But it seems like when I take it out and then put it back in, it's like constantly kind of fighting to get back to stable. So we're going to try it this way. I'll probably lift it out here and there just to make sure I'm getting all the grains mixed in well. Wow, that smells amazing already. I've never used Golden Promise and never used Special X. So this has Vienna in it as well, which I've used here and there, but I don't think I've used it. I don't remember using it as, you know, it's nearly 50% of the grist. That's more than I've ever used. And pale chocolate, of course, I love, so I'm glad that's in the mix here. That will be nice for this red ale. It's a little bit different, you know, with the French hops. I'm going to be curious how those go. But that's part of the fun of doing home brewing. You can try stuff, see what happens. Worst case, you tend to wind up with a pretty drinkable beer, and you learn something. I don't remember how many batches I've done on the Brewzilla now, but it is finally starting to feel like second nature, which is good. I just watched a Brew Your Own live chat with Denny Kahn, and I'm totally drawing a blank on the other person's name, and I apologize. And they were talking about kind of brewing in general, brewing for competitions, and they made the comment, which I find is true in my day job with programming too, that it's a muscle memory thing. So the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you just, you know, have these kind of minor tweaks that you do by nature as you learn more that start to become part of your brewing process. And it's, you know, even if on paper it looks like you're doing things exactly the same, the more you do it, the better you're going to get, and the better sense you're going to have of kind of what's going to work and react to things that don't go perfectly. There's no brew day that's, at least I've never done one that's totally perfect. There's always some little thing, and you know, kind of the more you do it, the more you can think on the fly to make sure you're adjusting as needed based on the circumstances on the ground. So just gonna finish getting this stirred in here. That was perfect. Temperature's at 155. Dead on both the built-in and the Bluetooth thermometer. So that is awesome. But like I said, I will let that sit for a while. Well, a few minutes, 5-10 minutes, something like that, just to make sure it's nice and stable. And then we'll start recirculating and start the timer. We're at the end of the mash, so I'm going to shut the pump off. I know I say this probably every video. Make sure, in my case, the way I have this arm position, it couldn't go down in there, but make sure your hose is not down in the grain bed. when you shut the pop off. So, got that off. Get this recirculation arm off of here. Mash temp was awesome today. It's dead on pretty much the whole time. This thing does a really good job. Put that over there for the moment. Get the lid off of there, and we'll give it one more stir before I start bringing it to a boil. And it never ceases to amaze me how much things clear up through the course of the mash. That is just looking fantastic. Love the color already. And yeah, I have high hopes for this beer. I think it's going to be good, and I'm really curious, like I said earlier, to try out those Mistral hops. Good motivation. BrewTubers is great motivation to try new stuff. Everybody in there knows a lot more than I do and has different experiences, like any group of people that all are dedicated to a hobby. People do things differently and know different stuff and have tried different things, and it is just a fantastic way to learn. So check out BrewTubers if you have not. And in this case, it was great motivation too, because we're doing a little, myself and Matt from Wrecked Brewery are doing a little collaboration. He's trying his local malts that you can get near him, and I am using kind of run-of-the-mill stuff that I got from Beer Wine Hobby, and we're going to kind of see what the difference is. So it's a fun way to do that, and the different equipment, but I tried to make this as identical a recipe as I could, adjusting for my efficiency, my gear. The hops I got were a little bit lower alpha acid than the ones he had, all that stuff. So the number, if you look at the recipes, they look identical, but there's a lot of variability in brewing on different equipment and a million different things that can happen. So it's as close as it can get within the equipment and skills that I have. So it'll be fun to try. Okay, so that's the end of the mash. I'm just going to go ahead and take this thermometer out, and we will switch back to built-in only and get it coming up to a boil. Well, actually, I will get the malt pipe out of there. You probably want to see me do that, huh? I didn't set up the camera too. I'll just leave it rolling and see what happens. And I have started squeezing the bag. I didn't do that the first couple of batches and got pretty crappy efficiency. Now I'm getting pretty much dead on 70%, which I'm happy with. When it was, kind of 62, 65, it's, again, as long as you know what it's going to be, that's the main thing. But I did want to get it a little bit better. In fact, why don't we see if I can adjust the camera? I don't know if I can do this or not. Nah, that's not going to work. I'll just leave it there, and we'll see what we get. I'd have to do a lot of screwing around with the tripod there. But anyway, if I, kind of let it drain and squeeze the bag, then that gets me up to 70, which is good. So I love this brew bag. It fits on there so nice and tight. That is a great way to do this for me. A lot of times when people see that I do it this, they're like, why do you use a bag in the Brewzilla? And I think it's peace of mind for me that I can crush the grain really fine and not worry about the pump clogging, basically. I mean, there's 100 different ways to do it. That's just the way that I've landed on that works. I may try it without, again, sometime. I just have to adjust my crush a little bit and figure out what the efficiency is when you change all that. Okay, so we'll get this lifted up out of here. And usually I just lift it part way. It's just not huge grain bill, so it's not super crazy. But just lift it part way, get a hold on the bag, and then spin it so it lands on the braces, whatever you want to say. Whoa, swung out a little bit there. Okay. That's all there is to that. I do have, I've probably said this a million times too, I do have the, have a ratcheting pulley, but for 5-gallon batches, I have not found that this is too bad. If I was doing 10-gallon batches, absolutely. And maybe kind of this coming winter, I'll do a big enough beer with a big enough grain bill that I'll change my tune. But I don't even know what you're seeing there. You're seeing a piece of metal. Not great, but whatever. Okay, well, I'm going to get the bag squeezed and we'll start bringing it up to a boil. Quickly coming up to a boil, even though it is really cold outside. I don't really have this lined up, so you can't see there's snow out there. But yeah, this should be fine. Hopefully. I don't know if I've ever brewed when it's that cold outside. May look into a steam condenser lid to solve that problem, but that's a whole other thing. The only other thing I want to mention is I'm using my hop spider today. I've never used this thing. I tend to like the hop bags, but you know, I bought 100 of those at some point and said I'll never run out, and today I didn't have enough. So we're going to go with the hop spider. Should be fine. And yeah, 60-minute edition, 30-minute edition, a big edition, ounce and a half or something at 5 minutes. And other than that, the groundwater is going to be really cold, so it should chill down nicely. And I'm using Nottingham yeast, and we'll ferment at 65. A little bit, maybe it's a little bit cooler than I normally do for this sort of beer. Yeah, we'll see. That's another big difference between mine and Matt from Rec Brewery is he used a strain of Kvike that he has kept going that is no longer available, and I have Lutra. I guess I could change to that. I don't know. I'm going to stick with the Nottingham. That'll be another huge difference between the two batches, so it'll be interesting to see kind of another point of comparison. So yeah, this part's kind of boring. Just get it up to a boil and throw some hops in, but we'll take footage here and there. I'll chime in as needed to make any comments that are relevant. Switching my phone, so I apologize for the additional noise. The other camera is kind of where I want it for the next thing. So using Mistral hops, I guess is how you pronounce it. They are French. Never used them before. They smell really amazing and kind of interesting. They're kind of a little bit berry going on, vague citrus maybe, but also like floral is the main thing I'm getting. And of course, that's just me smelling the hops right out of the freezer. So of course they're going to express themselves in the beer differently. But they just even a lot of hops I typically use, they just kind of smell generically hoppy when you're sniffing them in the bag. But yeah, these are really interesting. So I'm going to be I think they'll work well in this red ale. So cheers to Matt from Rec Brewery for suggesting this for this recipe. I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to keep using my phone today a lot. I think it's just a lot more convenient. So anyway, we're getting a nice hot break. I set this thing to like 216. I always just set a little bit above boiling to make sure it isn't just trying to hit exactly boiling. But yeah, that is looking good. I will let that do its thing for a minute here, and then we will throw in our first hop addition, which is a little over half an ounce of Mistral for 60 minutes. This is your moment of hot break, Zen. Into the hop spider. See if I like it or not. About to hit the 30-minute hop additions. It is cold in here. Snow outside. May have to do the steam condenser thing. Sorry, just trying to get a shot of the steam going everywhere. It's still mostly going out the window there, but there's more hanging around the ceiling than I'd like. Sorry for the gonzo journalism here. We're gonna grab the 30-minute hop addition. I actually ended up putting the yeast packet in the fermentation chamber since it's at the right temperature for the for fermenting, because it was going to be too cold. All right, so here's another half-ish ounce of Mistral going in. And then big addition at 5 minutes. We'll get the wort chiller in here in a little bit, because I may put it in early to make sure it has plenty of time to recover from how cold it is. But the Brewzilla is keeping a boil, no problem, even though it's only 33 degrees outside, and it's not that cold in here, but it's probably 50 or something by now and dropping. But yeah, going well. Steam condenser lid maybe in my future. Granted, this is the easy part, but just give you an idea of how quickly things are chilling down today. That is nuts. And I don't even have the water on full blast. So I may turn up a little bit, because why not get it chilled as quickly as possible. But anyway, cold groundwater is doing me a favor today. I think that literally took about 4 minutes to chill down to a little lower than I wanted, 63, but we're gonna, and I did whirlpool, that helps a lot too, but we're gonna get this in the fermenter. Arm's acting a little bit weird. I don't remember it being that close to the edge, but I'll get this moved over. I want to grab that hose to make sure it's not gonna go all over the floor. Yeah, next up. And there we are, getting towards the end here, looking and smelling fantastic. Just, it has a lot of aroma coming out of there even now, so we'll take a gravity reading here in a second. Get the yeast pitched, get it in the fermenter, or fermentation chamber. Here we are, happily in the fermentation chamber after the usual frenzy of activity at the end there. So yeah, pitched 1 packet of Nottingham. It was like 64, 62 degrees, something like that. A little bit cool, but I'm going to ferment at 65. So that's actually pretty good. And if anything, you want to start a little bit cooler than your fermentation temperature. And I got the spinning valve on there, which I almost forgot, which would have been bad. And I'll set the pill to control the temp, and we'll get all that profile stuff going with the wrap stuff so we can keep track of what's going on. And we'll let it ferment. I'll check in periodically to see how it's going. Cheers, and thanks for joining me on this. I don't know, like you said, we've never done this before, so we're winging it, and hopefully it will come out to be some decent content. But I guess you want to talk about kind of your motivation for. Oh no, we were going to pour first, right?
Yeah, let's do a pour. Let's see how we make these pour. Now, do you have? So you have mine on can, and the other one you're doing from draft, right?
Okay. Yep, this is mine off the keg. I have a little bit left. I think it's pretty much done. As I moved that keg around in there to get my Kentucky comment in there, it was very light. So that may be the last one off the keg. All right, and I will pour yours. But the gist of it, as we're pouring, is you came up with the recipe, shared it with me. We and we'll talk about the details, and then we send each other our beers to compare how they came out.
That's a nice pour. Came out good. Then crack mine open.
Yeah, yours is still great as well.
Yeah, mine. I purposely canned extra of mine because I had a feeling my keg was going to kick, and it did. So.
Yeah. I see you got the Gamdud glass going. That's always.
Yeah, well, I tried to find two glasses that were similar, so this was close enough.
I'm using these. I never know what to use for red ales, but I'm using the. I don't even know what the name of these kind of English.
Is your can bigger? I think your can might be bigger than mine.
Yeah, I got those are the 500 ml cans, so it's technically 16.9 ounces. Like,
I just noticed that mine all fit in there, and there's still a little something left in your can.
Yeah. All right. So I guess, well, cheers. Let's just, cheers. You can pick which one you want to drink first, and then we can talk about what we're doing here.
I'll tell you what, on appearance, these look pretty dead on, honestly.
Yeah, mine is. Mine is a little bit lighter. Yeah, but they are very close.
Yeah, sure. And they're both of them are super clear, and they look wonderful.
Yeah. And then, I guess we should do more of a structure tasting. I was drinking already, so.
That's okay.
Do a little aroma here. Oh, wow.
It's a little different on the aroma. It's a little different on the aroma.
Yeah.
So I'll just say from the recipe, they're both 23 IBUs, right? And we both use the Mistral hops. Mm-hmm. So in theory, they should be the same that way, but.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you want to characterize what you're detecting differently?
I think I'm real bad at descriptors, I think, with these reviews, but I'll tell you that yours has, what's the way I'm trying to think of the right words? Yours has more of a presence in the aroma than mine does. Mine feels more subtle in the aroma.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't want to say I don't smell the hops at all. I just feel like mine it's more low key than yours. Yours is definitely more noticeable.
Yeah, it's interesting because and it could be because mine's from the keg and it has a floating dip tube in it, but it might be reaching the bottom. Like I said, I get more of a yeast aroma off of mine because we did use different yeasts, and we'll talk about that too. But whereas yours smells to me a lot more fruity.
Yeah,
on the
that's a
nose,
good
and
way of
mine's
putting it.
more multi-yeasty. Yeah,
That's a
that's
good way of
interesting.
putting it. Yeah, yeah, I do get that. Yeah, mine's probably more of a fruit, but it's like I don't smell the hops in mine as much. I think
Yeah,
if it all is very subdued.
yeah, that's interesting. Is that, I mean, is that you've used this yeast quite a bit? Is that yeast esters the fruitiness, or what do you think that is?
It might be the fruitiness from the hops, honestly, because the
Oh, okay.
minstrel hops I think are supposed to put off like a sweet fruit, like citrus
Okay.
and floral. So I think I'm getting some of that sweet fruit off of the nose.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, floral's a good way to put it for sure.
Now, so we had a similar grain bill, right? You also used Vienna in yours too, right?
I did, yeah, and we tried to get it as similar as possible. And well, I guess why don't you talk about kind of the impetus behind this? Because you have a local maltster that you were using their malts from. We tried to line that up as much as we could.
Yeah, I can mention that, but I think so. The reason I brought that up is I think if anything, I'm getting the Vienna smell in the aroma more in yours.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm definitely picking
Yeah.
up the Vienna presence in this off yours.
But in
I can
theory, it
really,
was the same
yeah,
percentage, like 40, a little over 47% Vienna and 47% of the other base malt.
yeah.
Which in your case, I guess why don't you talk about what your other
Yeah,
base malt was?
so as far as the grain bill goes, so mine's mostly local malt. It's almost 50-50, right? So it's a little less than that. It's like 47-48% of
Mhm.
the Carolina Gold two row and the Carolina's Vienna malt. So that's the bulk of this beer. And then I put a little bit of pale chocolate in there and that special X that we got from our buddy Josh. So I know we both use the special X. My
Mhm.
pale chocolate I think is from I believe it's from Thomas Fawcett is the pale chocolate
Okay.
I'm using.
I
And then
I
the
will
rest of
double
local.
check to see what I got from Beer and Wine Hobby on mine, but I used Stone Path Vienna from Beer Wine Hobby, which I think is local to Massachusetts, I think maybe, and then Golden Promise, Simpson's Golden Promise for the other 47-ish%, and then yeah,
Okay.
pale chocolate. In Brew Father it says it's Warminster. I'm not sure that's what I got from Beer Wine, and maybe I just have to double check. And then like you said, the special X that we got courtesy of Josh.
Yeah,
But
I'm glad to hear that you used Golden Promise because I feel like that's probably the closest comparison to the Carolina Gold. The
mm,
Carolina Gold, I've been told, is more of a sweet two row, and
mm.
that's something I've noticed with the Golden Promise. So that
Yeah, and I
might
never
be
used Golden Promise
very close.
before, so I was excited to try it. And yeah, it's definitely, I always eat a little bit of the grains before I use it to get a sense of what they're like, kind of just raw. And it's definitely sweeter than, I think it's sweeter than any two row, American two row I've used, which is tends to be on the sweet side depending on what kind you get. But yeah,
Now, did we use the same yeast? I don't remember. I used the Kvike Juggernaut that I have.
no, and I use Nottingham, so that's going to be a
Okay.
pretty big distinction. Because that Kvike Juggernaut, I don't have that yeast. But yeah, I use Nottingham just because I figured, typical for a red ale.
Hmm.
And then talk about the Mistral hops. Like, did you want to use those specifically for a red ale, or do you had them on hand and want to try them, or how'd that come
So
about?
yeah, I had them on hand, right? So I tried the Yakima Valley hop box subscription for a year just to see what it was about, and
Mhm.
I just ended up with a whole bunch of hops. So I'm trying to go through them and find uses for them. So when I was reading the Mistral hops, they weren't too high in the alpha acids, and I could use a whole
Mhm.
can of them. And just looking at the descriptors of it, it seemed like something that would be interesting to try in this beer, and it
Mhm.
seemed like it turned out. So I'm glad I tried it.
Yeah, I think it's a great hop, and even just out of the bag, I think I say at some point in my video I did on the brew day, they have a really nice a lot of hops. If you take them out of the freezer and smell them, it's like, yeah, it's hops. But these had a really nice, stronger and a little bit different aroma than anything I've ever used. And they're
Yeah,
from France, right? Is that right?
they are from France. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
I was just looking to see if there was a good description on Yakima Valley about what you're
Yeah, the
supposed to
only
get out of
thing
these.
the only thing I remember was it was supposed to be the biggest character was the sweet fruit and of course the citrus and the
Mhm.
floral essence in there as well. Um,
Yeah, and
so
I
I just
don't
thought it might
know.
be interesting.
Do you know anything about, like, I should have looked this up ahead of time. I did the lineage of this hop. Is it its own thing, or it's a descendant of something else? Or
No, I don't remember to be
okay,
honest with you. Yeah.
I'll see if I can find something on that. And as we're drinking, so said that visually they're pretty similar. I think
Yeah, they're very
mine
similar.
is in my right hand, so it'd be on the left for people watching. That to
So,
me comes out just very slightly lighter. I think yours has a little bit more of that red character to it, which is nice. Mine's more amber and not super red, but they're pretty close.
they're very close.
Which
Yeah.
is which is interesting because you don't know the SRMs of your malt that you got locally versus Simpsons and all that, but yeah.
Well, I've been told that the Carolina Gold. So we do have a local brewer that's here. That he's still a home brewer, but he went pro. There you go.
Oh, cool.
Go to the cans here.
Cans.
So he went pro, and one of the things that he tried early on was, hey, let me just try all these different malts and see what I can do. So he tried the local stuff, of course, because it's here, and he can get it in bulk at a good price. And one thing that he learned very quickly, he doesn't use it very often anymore unless he's doing a local specific beer. Because one thing that he learned with the Carolina Gold specifically is, he said that your efficiency is actually going to be lower with it. You have to use more of it to get what you're trying to get. So that might have also played a factor here, because I know, like, when I brewed this, I came out with 1048, and I know we use a very similar recipe, so I don't know how that number compares to yours, but I can tell you that I could see the efficiency was a little bit lower than normal for me.
Yeah, and my efficiency was a little bit lower than I had been getting lately. My original gravity was 1044. And I only got 67% efficiency on this batch, so it came out around 4% alcohol, but I think yours is a little bit higher than that, right?
It is higher, but that's not what I was going. I was actually going for higher than that even, and it didn't hit that number. I was trying to get a 1050 beer, and I ended up with 1048. So.
Oh, okay. No, sorry, I was looking at the recipe on my side. My actual batch came out at 1042 original gravity and finished at 1012, which is kind of interesting because usually, Nottingham will tear through everything, but this one came out at 1012, and it's 4%. So
1011 for me.
Oh, that's close. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, which is also odd for Juggernaut. Juggernaut will rip through a beer too, but for some reason, it was done at 1011.
And I don't think I've ever used that much Vienna malt in anything I've ever brewed, so I don't have a point of comparison as to if that's doesn't have as much diastatic power as something like a Golden Promise or that local thing you're using with it. But you said that's a little bit lower efficiencies than some other malts as well. So that's probably a pretty apt.
And I'll tell you, I'm a little bit afraid or reserved on using Vienna malts, because I have had some Vienna lagers where I feel like, because I can pick out the Vienna character, and I feel like you can have too much of it. And I was a little bit worried about putting 4.5 pounds of it into this beer, that it might be a little overpowering, but whatever it is with the magic of this recipe, everything balanced out nicely. So it worked out.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's it was pretty drinkable. Mine, and I got some feedback from Chris Burgles Brewing, and I agree with him. Mine's maybe just, I would like it to be a little bit fuller bodied is my major complaint about it. But other than that, I think this is a great recipe, and those Mistral hops are really nice. And it's cool to try them because I hadn't used them before. So I appreciate you sending those my way as well. So I don't know. Have we actually drank yet?
No, we haven't. Let's taste something.
All right. Cheers. I'm gonna go for I'm gonna go for mine first.
Same here, I think.
Yeah, it still tasted pretty good. Mine is a little bit lower carbonation than I remember it being. Maybe the can's better.
This is the first time that I've had yours, by the way. So no spoilers here.
Okay, well, I will stop talking and let you comment.
Well, what's interesting though is one thing I've noticed right away is the head on your beer is actually a little bit thicker and hanging on longer than mine. And I don't know what's causing that. I mean, they were both canned and they're both sitting in the can the whole time in the fridge. Yeah. But that's interesting. Yours actually has a little bit more. You can see it right on the glass. Yours has more lacing to it. Maybe when I start drinking this, it'll be different. But for now, it's looking like this one is hanging around a little bit better around the top of the glass.
I really like I get that out because you sent me 2 cans. I had one a couple of weeks ago or something. But I really like the roastiness of the Special X in the finish. I think is really excellent. Not overpowering, but it's just a nice way to finish.
I haven't tasted mine in a while because the cake had run out and I saved this. But I could tell you right away from this one, when I'm drinking it. So I'm getting a lot of that Vienna character. I'm getting the graham crackery, like the biscuit notes in there. And what's really interesting, and it must be the Mistral hops that I'm getting, is when all of those multi flavors hit my palate first and kind of drive away. I'm now getting hit with that sweet fruit from Mr. Hops. I can taste
Oh,
that
yeah.
in the sort of
Yep.
in the aftertaste. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. This is a great job, man. This is
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you. Well, your
Very
recipe,
nice.
so I'm glad I didn't screw it up too badly. Yeah, like I said, the only thing for me is
I
a
like
little
that.
more body would be nice, but that's just a
Yeah,
little bit lower
yeah,
efficiency than I was planning for.
that's okay. It's still a damn good beer.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And all right, let's check out yours.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see what you think.
Yeah, the aroma is I really like that. Yeah, and like you said, that probably is given the I was able to find, like you said, the sweet fruit and floral that they list for the characteristics on Yakima Valley, and that really comes through on yours way more than mine for whatever reason.
I did notice that. Yeah, it's interesting
Yeah,
how that plays. That may be the yeast doing that. Who knows?
yeah, it could be too. Yeah, and it's interesting how it's interesting how similar they are in flavor, but I think, and probably this is the yeast too. Yours has a little bit more of the fruit notes on the palate as well, that kind of match, the aroma. Whereas I think mine, it's a lot more. The hops are a lot more in the background for me. But yeah, I really like those fruity notes, and it balances well with the roastiness of in the finish of the Special X too. Yeah, really great job on this. It's really excellent. I can see why you went through your keg fast. I appreciate you hanging on to it, Ken.
It was very good. It was one of the better ones I had made recently. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's really good. Those hops are awesome. I'm gonna have to be thinking about what else that would go well in. Yeah, it's and it is interesting too what the different yeasts can do, because it's they are, even though we got them as and you brew on different equipment and all that, there's a lot of variables, and even if you brew the same recipe multiple times yourself, it's like there's so many things that can be slightly different. But yeah, it's interesting how I'm surprised there wasn't more. I think that the Golden Promise must have been, like you said, was the best corollary, because they are
I would
very
agree.
similar. Yeah,
That part of it seems very similar. I'm gonna make a generalization here, and you tell me how far off I am from this. I think that, because going off of what you just recently said about the Mistral hops, I think yours, if I were to like have a scale, I think yours is more malt forward, and mine's got more of the hop character in it.
Yep, for sure. Yep, I would totally agree with
I
that.
think that's what I would say about them.
And I think the interesting thing there is is, as far as I know, is for we both had where's the IBUs on this? 23 IBU, because that was yours too, right? Yeah. So it's interesting, the IBU. So, and same hops, same same sorts. Since you sent them to me, they were like would have been the same batch, relatively speaking. And it's interesting how differently they come out based on the yeast. I would think that's mostly the yeast.
I would think. I mean, I know the grains are a little different, but I would think the yeast probably did most of this change in these beers.
Yeah. And what did you say the ABV on yours came out to be? What?
I got 4.85%.
Okay.
I got.
But you were going for 5, you said?
5 is what I was aiming for. Yeah, that's okay. It's close. It's close enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this was a great experiment, and I appreciate you suggesting it and sharing the recipe. And the Special X thing's floating around, because there are a couple other brew tubers that did some red ale with Special X that I think I have a can of one of them. While German Dave was in the United States, they did one, I believe. So yeah, well, I don't know. Any other thoughts, things you want to share about brewing the beer, brewing in general?
We should do this again sometime, because this was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you said there you want to do maybe get some other people involved with the next collab. This is really fun.
I wouldn't mind doing like a brewing collab if you have the time for it. Maybe we can kind of brew together, go through something, and kind of tailor a recipe together instead of just taking one and changing ingredients. Maybe we can kind of build one together. And of course, really we're going to have some variable to make it interesting, but come up with something that'll work.
Yeah, there's always something. Yeast hops, grain, technique, whatever, dry hop versus not. Yeah, there's a million ways to go with that. Yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be fantastic. What do you got brewing next on your list?
Well, I think the next one I was going to do was that peanut butter and jelly beer. As I
Oh
wanted to
yeah,
get a couple of, I wanted to get the Hellas out, so that's on tap now, ready to roll. And
nice.
yeah, I kind of want to, I want to brew some stuff for the summer, so I definitely want to get like maybe a New Zealand Pilsner or something else, a couple of light beers for the summer. But I thought
Nice.
before I did that, now that I have one new on tap and I have that black IPA that's still on tap, I thought my
Oh
next
right.
one was kind of a fun beer. I've been dying to try to make a peanut butter and jelly beer. Um, I'm trying to mimic we have a brewery that's nearby. It's over in Asheville,
Okay.
Catawba Brewing, and they make one. It's called Peanut Butter Jelly Time, and it's a
Oh
brown
nice.
ale. And now what they do is they make a brown ale based beer, and from what I understand, they rack it onto roasted peanuts, and then they also rack
Ooh.
it into or on top of like a raspberry puree for the jelly.
Mm.
I'm not going to quite do the same thing, but I'm trying to come up with something similar because when I drank that beer, it literally tasted like you just took a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, blended it, and drank it. I
Wow.
mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I wonder how they get around if they're racking it onto peanuts. I wonder how they make that work with because the fat can kill the head retention and all that, or maybe
The oils,
maybe don't worry
yeah, the
about that
oils
too
are
much.
really killer. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know how they do it, but I mean, so when I poured the beer, the head does not stick around for that beer at all.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm sure that has to do with the factor the peanut oil,
Yep.
but it's a very nice beer, and it's something that like if you're looking for, if you're if you're not a beer person, that likes to drink, beer that
Right.
tastes like beer. I know it's a terrible way of describing it, but like my wife doesn't like beer because she thinks it tastes like earwax. And
Oh,
she doesn't,
interesting.
and I find it to be an interesting description. We're like, do you actually eat the earwax? Because I don't. I mean,
Well, I think
she
it's
thinks all
the
beer
interesting
basically
thing
tastes the same.
the interesting thing to me is sometimes I'll describe things as tasting like something you would never eat, but it's because smell and taste are so closely related that it's like an aroma thing or like an association thing that doesn't make any logical sense but still work. It's kind
Yeah.
of
So kind
interesting,
of
but
so kind of oversimplifying it, the peanut butter jelly beer that I had, it tastes like you're drinking a juice. It doesn't taste like you're drinking a beer.
right.
So that would maybe appeal to somebody that doesn't like to drink beer. So
Yeah, I
I
think
thought it'd be
I
interesting to
think
try
that
something like that.
yeah, that sounds yeah. Do you know how you're going to do the peanut butter aspect of it
So
yet?
the peanut butter, I think what I'm going to do for that is use the PB2 peanut butter powder, the protein
Mhm.
powder. I've heard a lot of people have really good success with that, so I thought I would try that. I think maybe the best way to do it, maybe the way I'll do it, is to put it into the boil and make sure I put enough of it in there to get the flavor across. As far
Mhm.
as the jam part of it, I thought about the puree, but the thing is, if you go that route, now you have to if you're trying to maintain the sweetness, then I have to worry about back sweetening and everything to make sure it stays there.
Right.
So what I thought I would try instead is using like the Apex flavoring because
Oh yeah.
a lot of their little flavor bottles are pretty good. So I thought I
Mhm.
would try one of theirs. I bought their raspberry jam one, and we'll see if it comes through. I
Oh, they
probably
have
put
one
that.
that's actually raspberry jam, not just
Yeah,
raspberry, huh?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah. So I'm
That
gonna put that
that'll
in probably like at kegging and see. Maybe I'll put a
yeah.
little bit in, see how it tastes, add a little bit more if I need to, and see how it comes out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll be cool. I've used PB2 on I think I made a peanut butter porter several years ago, and it works well. I mean, at least in that beer, I had to use a ton of it to get some peanut butter aroma and flavor, but it works well, and it especially in beer, then you aren't worried about killing the head and all that stuff, but you still get the characteristics. And I have heard that they make peanut butter extract also, and I've heard that's pretty nasty, which I would have guessed. It's
I think
doesn't probably work well.
I think Apex makes a peanut butter
Oh,
flavoring
do they?
too. I guess I could have
Maybe
blended
they
them
make
if
a
I
good
wanted
one.
to. Yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah,
haven't
maybe they
tried it.
could. It's some of that stuff is so hard to do but it doesn't mean somebody hasn't done it well. It just there might be a lot of bad ones out there.
Well, I
But
can tell you from experience. So every year I make a watermelon wheat beer. This is the house
okay.
favorite. Everybody loves it. Even the people that don't like to drink beer, they love it because it tastes like you're drinking, a watermelon.
Mhm.
But the thing with that is like, so what I do to make the watermelon beer is I make the base sweet beer. When it's time to do sort of a secondary, I take a huge watermelon, get as much juice as I can out of it, which is I try to aim for at least 8 cups. Sometimes I get 9. But the problem with
Mhm.
the watermelon juice is it's mostly water, so you're not going to get a lot of like retained flavor from it. It's enough to kind of get it going, but after time it'll fade away. So what I
Mhm.
always do is I add a little bit of like a watermelon extract to the keg just to keep the flavor around. But I can tell you from
Right.
experience that watermelon extract, and it's probably the same for any extract, too much it can happen very fast. So like when
Yeah.
I buy like a little 2-ounce bottle of it, you can't put that whole thing in there because I've tried it once, just on a whim, and it tastes like you're drinking like overpowered Jolly Ranchers. It's really bad.
Oh, yeah.
So I've tried half. Like I've tried half of it, like a 1 ounce, and I feel like that's more of the upper limit. So you definitely a little bit goes a long way with that kind of stuff. So I think what I'm going to do with the peanut butter beer when I go to add the raspberry flavoring in, I'll probably do a similar thing. It is a 2 ounce bottle, so I'll probably put like maybe half an ounce in, see what that's like, add a little bit more if I need to, and not go crazy because you can't go back. Once you put it in, you're
that's
done.
true.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because if I'm trying something in a like not a flavoring, but I want to see what a hop does or something, I tend to like go overboard with things because then to me anyway, it's like it's easier to say, okay, well that was too much versus maybe a little more. But yeah, with flavoring, no, it's exactly the opposite. You want like kind of like cutting your hair. You can't add it back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a shame that you can't. It's a shame that you can't. If you overcorrect, it's too late. So there's no going back. It's better to go slow.
Yeah, unless you plan ahead and split the batch, and then you could dump more beer in but then you're into a whole world of possible problems in a whole lot of other ways. So yeah. I think
I like this. I think I like yours better than mine. I must say.
Really?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
The reason for that, I think, is something that you may not know about me is I like malty beers.
Oh, okay.
So the fact that yours is perceived to be more malty than mine, even though we know it's essentially the same grain bill at least as far as what's in it. Yours definitely is coming across more malty than mine. Not to say that mine's bad, but mine definitely has the hops that are shining through a little bit better than the malt. But yours is more malt forward in the taste, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think I like yours better probably because it's, familiarity thing. It's like, ooh, this is different, but it's kind of similar but different. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's a definite different expression of the malt and the hops between the two. My guess is probably, mostly based on yeast. I would guess, but
I would guess. I mean, there's enough of a grain difference too, but I think that the yeast probably is giving us the perception being different, as different as it is. It's really interesting. Really you take two almost identical beers and how different they really are. It's really cool.
And like I said, I've I don't tend to make the same beer over and over. I have a couple now that I think I'm going to probably tweak and take a couple runs at. But even the times I made that was a good beer last time, I'll make it the same again. It's never exactly the same. There's too many. You can track things down to the alpha acids of the hops and all that stuff, and there's a lot of variability. Once you hand it over to yeast,
that's it.
It's going to do what it's going to do. Which
Game's
is
over.
kind of fun. I mean, that's kind of what makes it fun for me anyway. It's like you put all this planning into it, and then it's like it's in somebody else's hands, and but what's the saying of another brew tuber? In the end, it's beer, right? Or at the end of the day, it'll be beer. Yep.
And it's usually not a bad beer unless you do something that's really wild. It's usually not a bad beer either. So you just learn from it.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think the only bad beer that I've made recently was the strawberry experiment beer. Other than that, no. It doesn't always come out exactly how you want, but generally speaking, they're pretty drinkable.
It was a good learning experience. Things like that are great to see the differences. What does what to a beer? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a flavoring thing too, and it was way too much. And like I said, can't go back. But but I think any. I don't want to take up too much of your evening. Any final thoughts on?
No.
Yeah, no. I think this was great, and like I said, I really appreciate you sending the hops and you sending via Josh the Special X and sharing your recipe. And it was a really fun experiment. And I'm still shocked at how similar.
Two very nice beers.
Yeah, I think so. So cheers to us. Props to you for the recipe. And I have some Mistral hops left over. I may do something else with them to see what I could get into with them.
Oh, so you bought more than needed for the recipe just to try on something else, huh?
No, I think you sent me a little more than I needed for the recipe.
Okay.
I think so. I have a little bit left, and I'm working on a small batch setup to do more experimentation, not at the 5-gallon level. So I may throw them in something along those lines and see what I can get into with them.
Yeah, it's a fun hop. I'm sure it'll work in other styles just as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. All right. Well, I think we can probably end it there. And thanks again. One final cheers.
Cheers.
And I like yours better. You like mine better, so it all worked out.
That's all right. There you go. Not a
All
bad
right,
one.
thanks.
Thanks.